Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Sander and Jess Valentine.
Hey, squad. Welcome back, Molly.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Guys, we have Molly. How do we say your last name?
You asked me the last
I
name.
know.
Ruggere.
Ruggere.
Yeah.
I probably skipped. Okay, I was just listening to our episode. So Molly and I talked like in May of 2021. And if you guys want to go back and listen to that episode, it's number 130. But she reached out to me because your life looks a lot different than it did when we spoke. But there has been the common thread of the Counterculture Club that's remained constant. So I wanted to catch up with you and like see how you're. So last episode, you said you were just on the cusp of 3 years or had 3 years that you had just celebrated. So did you just celebrate year 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
March is 5.
Oh
so,
my
yeah.
God. How does it
But
feel?
it's so funny because it's like every year it feels less and less exciting in a way. It's like I kind of keep forgetting, like I had to keep reminding myself, oh, it's like in a week. Oh, it's, because it just, even though I am a coach and I spend all day, every day, like talking about the subject of drinking and not drinking, it's such it's just such a not a part of my life anymore. It's like, doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's like, I don't think about my own not drinking. It's just the way that I live my life, which I think is like the goal. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I just kept forgetting about my anniversary and
well, 5 years is a long time. That's a big one, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
major milestone, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's, I don't know. It's weird. I just like, maybe because I'm not in like 12 steps anymore. So it isn't as big of a thing. And I think also like, what we were talking about before, I think it has a lot to do with like the evolution of my mindset about drinking versus not drinking. And the way that I speak about it, like Annie Grace says, and I did my training through her of like, I drink as much as I want. I just never want to drink. So like, I don't really use the sober label anymore. I don't really refer to myself as like in recovery. I always kind of had some discomfort with like the traditional recovery language. And I just feel like in the last year or so, I felt like comfortable to kind of let some of that language that doesn't work for me go.
How does that feel? Like, do you get a lot of pushback from people about that? I mean, I feel like we've like both of our sort of, models of like alternative recovery, if you will, like sort of like, challenge those ideas. Have you gotten pushback about it?
Not as much as I would think. It's almost like, and I don't want to say this, I don't want to jinx myself, but it's like I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop because like we've been so successful in Charlotte. We hosted Charlotte, North Carolina's first alcohol-free beverage festival in January this year.
God, that's major.
And over 500 people came. It sold out. We had like over 20 NA beverage brands like Athletics, Sam Adams, and it was just like insane. Like it was amazing. I did not anticipate that many people. I knew they would come. I just felt confident that they would come, but like I thought it would be like 200 and 300 or 300 and it was like 500.
That's a lot of people.
Like well in advance too. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like nobody was buying. It was like a steady purchase, and we had like VIP experiences starting at like $90. So it was like, it wasn't cheap either. And I was just like, that was a testament to how important or how much people want these kinds of events. And the audience that came out was very much a mix of drinkers and non-drinkers and sober curious and sober. But I guess that's part of why I've sort of like changed the direction of Counterculture Club and who our target audience is because I realized along the way, like, I want to reach the people that are where I was before I decided like, okay, I have to stop drinking. Like the people that are like, realizing it's a problem. They're doing it all the time, but they think they have to make alcohol work because that is the expectation in our society. And there are so many people kind of on like in that gray area, like that middle of the spectrum that are just are uncomfortable with the amount that they drink or the way that alcohol makes them feel, especially like as you get older. And I'm in my early 30s, and so a lot of our members are as well. And this is the kind of the age where people are like, I just can't drink the way that I used to. And you're not going to attract those people because they don't maybe even think that they have a problem. But, I want to make a societal change. I want to like destigmatize not drinking for everybody, because it's not good for any of us. So like, why do we have to? It's just like, I'm more like, rather than like focused on, I mean, obviously helping people get sober and recover. Like I'm a coach. That's like the biggest thing that I do. But in terms of like from a like anthropological perspective, I don't know if that's the right word, but like examining society, like I see where things are going and I want us to be a part of that, like change in the tide of like what people think about alcohol. And I want to bring together drinkers and non-drinkers. I think the siloing off of non-drinkers makes the idea of not drinking seem like deprivation, or seem like, oh, they don't have fun, it's boring, there's nothing you can do. So I'm basically of the mindset of like, let's show, not tell. Like let's throw awesome events that anybody would want to go to, not just like they'll go to because they don't drink and there's nothing else they can do. Like I want them to be incredible events that like they've never seen before or experienced, that they want to go to regardless of their relationship to alcohol.
Right. So it was a totally sober event though, right? But were there people drinking? You kind of threw me when you said like drinkers and non-drinkers bought tickets.
Yeah. So just from like my knowledge of who was there, and, like who attended and who's come to our events, like it was every event we do is 100% alcohol-free, drug-free.
Right.
But we present it as like, this is a challenge. It's a way for people that drink to experiment with socializing alcohol-free and just see what it's like. Because how often do you have that opportunity?
Right.
You're always going to have the pressure to drink if alcohol is there and you are drinking. So it's like the lowest barrier to entry for people to kind of like dip their toe without getting that judgment from the outside world.
Do you think, did a lot of people come alone, or did most people bring somebody?
I don't even, the people I talked to, it seemed like most people were with somebody, but I think a lot of people did come alone. It was just, there were so many people around. So, but yeah, it was just really cool because I didn't know if I would draw that crowd. It's like, you never know who's going to show up. And it was like exactly the people that I wanted to show up. It wasn't just sober people. It wasn't just people in 12 steps or, it was like a variety of mindsets and relationships with alcohol. And like, that is how you create social change. It isn't by targeting the people that are already seeking out the thing. Like if you're sober, you're going to go find the resources, or if you want to get sober, if you need to get sober. But it's that group of people in the in-between phase that they just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's out there because they're not seeking it out. So it's kind of like opening people's minds to, yeah, your life is fine, but like, could it be better? Right. And like, why do you drink?
Right. And I feel like the stage that you're talking about, like in like what I'm learning in school is like, it's called the pre-contemplation phase where like people don't necessarily have like a problem with their problem. Just like something that comes up every once in a while. And, not to go back to like the old school language, but I do feel like the gauge that I always tell people, like, is your life unmanageable? Like, if it's unmanageable, like 1 out of 7 days and that's okay with you, then that's okay with you. But, like I think both of us, reflected previously, like we were blackout binge drinkers. And so my life was unmanageable, like 5 days out of the week, sometimes 6 days out of the week, like, and it's just up to them to decide. But I love that you're providing all these alternatives for people to, kind of get their toe wet in, I guess, like sober living. But it's so silly,
It's like, and it's not a recovery event. It's not a meeting. It's not a, deep conversation about how awful alcohol is. It's like, this is a fun experience. Right. It's like very light. It's purely social. And it's just like, we're not saying like, this is the better way to live or what have you, but we're like, have you considered that you maybe can do this?
Sure.
And like, and letting them to kind of have those realizations for themselves. I mean, that's sort of what coaching is all about. You don't tell people what to do. You want to help them go and figure out what works for them and have their own experiences. So it's been cool. And honestly, I feel like the biggest barrier for me to stop drinking was the fear of judgment, the fear of, the scarlet letter A on my, lapel. I don't know what the rest is. And having to take on the weight of that identity. Sure. Like it didn't feel like right for me at that time. And I was literally like drinking to prove I could make it work. And that ended up taking me so much farther and causing so much more destruction in my life. But if I had seen like cool people like doing cool stuff without alcohol, and like if I saw someone who was, having these fun events, like people I admired that were like actively saying, I didn't just stop drinking because I had to. I stopped drinking and this is how much my life improved. Like I got all the things I wanted that I used alcohol for only after I stopped drinking. Like I used alcohol for confidence. I used alcohol for connection and like romantic relationships and, to seem interesting and be funny. And it was
so
like,
true.
I was never going to get those things as long as I was using alcohol to give them to me.
Yeah. And I think there's like when you are, what do you call it? Are we saying alcohol free? Like what I'm saying sober.
Yeah,
when you're sober, when you're alcohol free, whatever, when you're not doing the thing that you had a problem with, I don't know, it hits different. Like you just experience the world in a much more sensitive and aware way, because you're like, you have all your wits about you. And I feel like it's almost just like a Jedi mind superpower now, because I don't know, you can navigate situations. I'm much more like in tune with my own emotions because I'm like familiar. I've had to get to know my lady feelings on the inside so that I can, regulate myself when things are like ebbing and flowing. And I feel like now I feel like it's genuinely like a superpower.
Yeah, I agree. Like even like I would never go back to drinking like I did or drinking normally, like or regularly. But even thinking like when I think about like how would I even do that? Like if I did that, when would I do it? Like it's like
also why?
I don't have the
That's
time,
my thing,
right?
is like why?
What's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
To me there's no point. Like I do sometimes still miss it. Like there's like two parts that I miss, like the like the aesthetic of it and the like the vibe of it, but I also miss like the loss of control feeling. But like in reality, like I don't miss either. I don't need either of those things. You know what I mean?
And yeah, I totally get that. I think with, what I see with the clients I work with, it's like there's like 4 or 5 beliefs that everybody shares, which is like alcohol relieves stress, alcohol is a reward, alcohol helps me have fun in social situations. Really like, or boredom. Like those are like the main things, no matter what age they are, what race they are, what gender, like they will show up and those will be, the primary sticky beliefs for them. And so it's just, for me, it's about them figuring out what they can enjoy more than alcohol. Cause that's what happened with me. I didn't like anything more than I liked drinking at that time. So, and I was never going to figure out what those things were so long as alcohol was in my life, because, not only does it work more quickly than like working it consistently at something over time and getting the results of it, but it affects your brain on a chemical level and you have the higher dopamine from it. So obviously you're choosing between like this thing that makes you feel like naturally happy versus this thing that makes you feel like, you're on top of the world, or like one extreme or the other, not always like you're on top of the world, but like you're already in that state of like disease, like comfort, you're gonna reach for the thing.
You're like already in a deficit, right? Like you're already
you're always
trying to get these things to like increase your happiness and dopamine and endorphins, but then like you're drinking, which is depleting them. It's like filling a bucket with a hole in it. So like what's the point?
It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Correct.
Just over and over again. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even until like, it's so funny, the like little things you notice. Like I always hated the dentist. I talk about this story all the time. I don't know why this has become like my main metaphor, but like I never wanted to go to the dentist. I hated it because I never flossed and I like didn't regularly brush my I mean, I brushed my teeth. I didn't have bad breath, but like pass out on my bed with my makeup on more often than, not.
Yeah.
So like
we're not great at consistency.
Yeah. I had no consistency. Exactly. So like it would be so painful. They would yell at me about flossing. It would be a whole thing. I like didn't go for like 2 solid years when I was in New York. So then now that I've started flossing, when I quit drinking, like I started consistently flossing. And now I get like praise by the dentist for like my flossing abilities. And like, it's painless. It's over in like 10 minutes. And I'm just like little things like that. You don't realize that by cutting out alcohol, it just makes everything so much easier. Like, yeah, you have to sit with some discomfort for a while, but it's like, that's also reality. Like, that's the way life goes. And through discomfort is how we grow and learn. So if we never are just uncomfortable, we're just going to be stuck where we are forever, because it's just too hard to not use that substance to push away.
Yeah. I'm interning at an inpatient rehab facility, And we get like all sorts of addiction, and like rarely we get like alcohol addiction. However, I was fortunate enough to chat with like 2 clients that were in detox and rehab for alcohol addiction. And, it was like the level of which if they were to detox on their own, like they could possibly die. And the facility that I work with helps with the medication aspect of things. So they'll give you comfort meds, make sure that you don't like fucking die in your sleep from withdrawal. And like the similarities that I can draw from those experiences is that they just wanted to come in, dry out, and sort of like get on with it. And I think that's like the common cycle that they'll like, oh, I'm going to quit for a month, I'm going to quit for a week, whatever it may be. But like until you start feeling the feelings and doing the work, and I'm sure like I want to hear all about the Annie Grace coaching program, because that's like something that they avoid like the plague. And I'm not saying that like I can't just look at these 2 people in a vacuum, but I mean, it's something that I avoided forever. It was just like the year before the official time I quit drinking, it was like I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to poke the bear. It was just like this thing that I completely shut off as a part of me. And, like now in my 7th year of sobriety, embracing that part has helped me like cruise on into like the future. And like you said, you don't really notice the milestones anymore. Me either, but it's also because I had acknowledged it and, worked on it, honored it for so many fucking years.
I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life. And the first year it was like better than a birthday, because I had achieved something, and my friends and family like sent me flowers and like cards, and it just felt like I felt proud of myself. Like I'd accomplished something. And so much of celebrations in your life are just things that you just had a birthday, or like, they're like, but this was actually something that I earned and achieved and like changed my whole life with. But yeah, I think the biggest spoiler for not drinking or for changing your relationship with alcohol is that the work actually, as Annie Grace says, the work starts when you stop drinking. And like, if you're expecting to go into a not drinking life and be living the same exact life, be the same exact person, just without alcohol, like that isn't really what's going to happen. Like it changes you. And I think the more you work on it, the more it changes you. But it's really hard to just not do any internal work and just, do the same exact stuff, but without alcohol.
So since last time we talked, I mean, a lot's changed for you. So how did you keep working on all of that stuff? And how did your, like, if you want to share, like, how has your personal life changed as a result of that, even 3 years in? Because I feel like for me, 3 years was really sort of like I was in a hole for like a couple of years. Like, I don't know about you, but my year 3 and even 4 were like, the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I feel like they're like the teenage years or something. And I definitely have been experiencing like these kinds of growing pains ever since. So I quit my full-time job right after we talked in November of 2021. So I'm in year 2 of working for myself full-time, running Counterculture Club and coaching. And I love the work.
Scary.
It's so hard to be self-employed. Like I've never worked this hard in my life. And like, I pretty much planned the festival by myself and like did all of the coordinating and the PR and the, staffing and ordering. And it was just so much work. And I didn't get to enjoy my holidays. Like I didn't get much sleep. I kind of like put my self-care, like tabled it to work on this project. And so I had to take some time afterwards to just kind of like recover. And it took me a while to get back into the groove. Because it's like you don't have the stability of a full-time job, and sometimes you can be paralyzed by all the things you could be doing. It's like too many options, and then you're just like, I don't know what to do. So, and I have ADHD, so that makes it even harder. But so it's like it's been challenging just to like learn how to navigate that and all the like financial aspects and all that. But that being said, like sometimes I'm like, do I want to go back to a, 9 to 5 and work for somebody else? And like, I still don't, even when like, it's like a slow month or something. And I'm like, this would be so much easier to just have a full-time job. I am doing like exactly what I want to be doing and something I care about so much that I don't know how I would be able to put that aside. Like
It's
I've
also
never been.
like always an option to go back to, right? Like I've
Yeah,
started
exactly.
and stopped so many fucking things that it's like, I don't know, there's always a job. If you look hard enough, there's always a job waiting for
Yeah.
you at the end
And
of
I
it.
never thought I could be a person that like I was always a person that just like, worked in cool industries and had cool jobs, but I was never passionate about them. I didn't care about climbing the corporate ladder. But now it's like I am passionate about what I do, and I didn't
Right.
think that was possible.
Right.
So yeah, how can you give that up?
Yeah, I'm hoping that that rubs off on me a little bit because I'm definitely feeling that as well. Just, you know, like the end goal for me is like private practice and probably like some pro bono work with agencies. But,
Yeah.
it's, I feel like it's finally like what I want to be doing. But
Yeah.
it's been a fucking struggle to get there,
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about the process. When are you like officially done with everything?
So December I will graduate and I take my like licensing exam in October. So that primarily like I just have to complete my final internship. I have 3 more classes left. I'm in one now, so 2 this fall. And then work at my free job, my internship, and then hopefully then study for my test. And if I pass my test, then I can start officially like as soon as I you have to find somebody to supervise you for a couple of years. So I'm technically like an associate counselor therapist. That like I don't know if you saw that TikTok drama about that chick therapist who did you see all of that drama?
Honestly, I'm not on
Oh,
TikTok.
okay.
I
So
need to be.
there was like a new therapist on TikTok that she was like here's my about me, and she sort of just like alluded to having more credentials and more experience than she ended up having. So I just want to be very clear that like I'll be an associate counselor,
Yeah. Yeah.
working underneath somebody who will be supervising me once a week, but I will be able at that time to take my own clients like underneath their umbrella. So
That's so
like it's not
cool.
like people will be sitting in on the sessions with me, but I will definitely be like checking in once a week to discuss like caseloads or difficult things. So it's not necessarily like I would say the internship is like training wheels because you're like you really don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you're learning about all the state laws and regulations and all of this stuff, as well as like the clinical content, which hasn't been as difficult for me. Like you have a natural knack for talking to people. You have a natural empathy, so that's always come kind of easy to me. But it's you know knowing when to push people, knowing when to pull back,
Yeah.
like
I
it,
can be challenging
yeah.
for
So
sure.
I mean, the school part of it, like it's no joke at this point. Like I kind of was able to work my full-time job up until January of this year, and once that like free job started, girl, I was like running all over the place, like running myself into the ground. And even with school, like it was a spring. We'll just leave it at that. Like I owe the squad a catch up because it's been a time. But
Yeah.
I'm like happy the weather's warm, happy I'm almost done with school, and like really fucking proud of myself that
Yeah.
like
Me too. I'm proud of you.
yeah, like really fucking proud that I've been in school for 3.5 years. I spent the whole pandemic in
Wow.
college, and
Yeah.
I feel like I remember when I told the squad that I was coming on this journey, and I was like, who the fuck knows? Like this seems like a really long road, and
I
now I'm
remember
like
hearing about it.
towards
Yeah.
the end of the road, and it's like holy shit, like you really can make change. Like just like you celebrated 5 years and I celebrated 7. It's like
Yeah.
little teeny tiny, you know like it just accumulates. Like you said, it's small things over time. Like I had to go back and get my fucking bachelor's degree, then I had to go to grad school. It's like all these little teeny tiny things. And I mean, I hope I fucking enjoy it at the end of this. Like, I don't know. You tell me what it's like. So tell me, I guess, a little bit about what you do so that I can kind of understand how we're different. Like, I think I know in my head,
Yeah.
and I've worked with coaches, but you've also done the Annie Grace training. So, like, fill me in.
Yeah. So I did, at the time I talked to y'all last 2 years ago, I had done my life coaching training. That
Mm-hmm.
was just that's a general life coaching training. So it doesn't give you a specific vertical, which is good because it gave me that baseline of skills.
Sure.
And I, I want to talk to you about like your program because I'm interested. I couldn't find anything that like a recovery or like alcohol coach certification program that wasn't 12-step aligned other
Mm-hmm.
than Annie Grace's program. So
Mm-hmm.
like I had interviewed the year before and I couldn't pull the trigger because I just couldn't afford it. And then I just like could not let go of wanting to do it. So, when I entered into like doing this full time, I enrolled in the coaching program, and I think that when you ask me about like how things have changed for me, I think that program has really evolved my mindset and also like I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but like going back to what you were saying and what I was saying about like the challenges and the hard work and all of those things, it's something I've been thinking about where like there is no before and after. Like Molly drinking was a mess and Molly after was wonderful and awesome and got up and ran,
Sure.
you know, but for a while I thought it was like that because
Mm.
my first few years were like this honeymoon phase where everything was just getting better and I was like hitting all these achievements and all of these things. And then, you know, as you go through and as life continues on, new challenges are going to come up. You're going to feel like a mess all over again. And that's just like, they're leveled up challenges that
Yes.
you never that you got into only because of everything you did up until that
Mm-hmm.
point. So like
Mm-hmm.
never in a million years when I was drinking would I wanted to start my own business. Like that was so just not something I wanted. Like I'd look at the owners of like the PR firms I was at and I'm like, so where am I going to go in the future? Because I don't want to be them. So, you know, like I had no direction. And now it's like the next steps just keep kind of revealing themselves to me. So I don't even really feel like I need to have a exact vision for what I see my future as because I just feel confident that like it will come. Because that's what's happened like ever since I quit drinking.
Well, I
So
admire that about you because I don't think I'm like a captain. I think I'm a co-captain. And anytime I'm like even now, I've been out of school now for 3 weeks, and I'm just like, when I'm left to my own devices, like I definitely need like a cohort of some kind to navigate like business life, all of that stuff. Because left to my own devices, like in sobriety, I've definitely been able to like take bigger risks, but I'm still working on like my baseline of like my self-esteem and my confidence within myself and knowing if I'm doing the right thing. Like definitely still like neurotic to the max. And so that's definitely still been one of the concepts that I keep coming back to in sobriety and in life is like how lonely it can be if you don't call in like, the right friends, the right partner, the right, like, I don't know, just the right relationships,
yeah.
business, friends, family, whatever, love, that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I admire and for really like I'm proud of your independence. And like that's a big fucking deal. Like doing a whole festival on your own, like dude, I'm doing a retreat with a friend and it's still like the most,
Yeah,
It's like
I don't
just a
recommend it.
handful of us.
Yeah, I won't be doing that again.
Yeah.
I may have to completely retire if I do it again by myself.
Yes.
We're gonna do the festival again. We're gonna do it in January like we did this
Right.
year. But I started planning it in like October because I was like, it's gonna be a small thing. And then it just kept getting bigger. I think once you add the word festival, it just becomes like
Yeah, I imagine that
a whole other
a
animal.
lot. Yeah, yeah.
And our space was like humongous. It was this huge warehouse space. So it was just, yeah, it was a bigger thing than I've ever done. But I've done PR for festivals. Like I know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's cool about this too, is that I picked my degree in communications. I wanted to be a writer, but I picked communications because it felt safer
Mm-hmm.
and like I get a job. And that was like a practical
Yep.
decision. I also like was terrified of the vulnerability of like putting your work out there and having others judge it and
Totally.
feedback it. I didn't have any self-esteem to do something like that. Never would have started a social club. I still like, why did an introvert start a social club? But it's because I needed that community and I still do. And I just was like unwilling to not have what I needed or try to fit in somewhere I didn't feel like I fit in. And once I quit drinking, I was like, well, that was the hardest thing that I could ever do. And I didn't think I could do that. So what the hell? I'm going to try this and try that. And I think with me, it's like, I just believe so much in what I'm sharing and like what my mission is that it doesn't feel like personal to me in a way. Like it doesn't feel like I'm not like, because I'm not someone that's wanting to brag about myself or my own achievements or like my way is right. It's more like I am pointing to other resources that are correct and like not correct, but that I think like I believe in. And I think that's why it makes it a little easier because it's like not actually about me. It's not personal.
Right.
It's just this philosophy
Well,
is
and I think it's easier to market something that you think is going to help people. Like I know that, like why keep that to yourself, right? Like if you're, selling, eventually I'll be selling a similar service, right? Like I'm not the business of helping people. It can feel a little like gross, but at the end of the day, like I, it's my
yeah.
time also. So
And that is I have gotten a little bit of negative feedback. Like I'm talking like a random LinkedIn comment from a stranger or like an occasional like troll on Instagram. And it's usually somebody who comes from the mindset that like, you shouldn't ever charge anything for a recovery service. And that's because AA exists. And it's like, that's great, but that doesn't work for everybody. And I can't do this if I don't charge for it. And we don't accuse doctors of like, profiting off vulnerability or chefs or, it's just like, it's reserved for people that are doing anything outside of like the traditional 12-step recovery program. So I had someone call me a snake oil salesman. But I am so confident in what I do, and I've seen the results. Like I've seen people's lives change in 3 months. Like it's incredible to get, it's just like, it's not bullshit. It works. So like, I mean, I couldn't imagine not getting to see, like now that I've had a taste of seeing people go through those transformations and like change their whole lives, like I can't imagine going back to anything else. Like it's the best feeling in the world to be like a small part of like helping someone do that. So
what's like what's the most annoying kind of client to deal with? Because I feel like I have one in mind that like the people that like are sign up and are gung-ho in the beginning and then like sort of fizzle and fade and then get mad at you at the end because they're like, it didn't fucking work. I want my money back. It didn't work.
I've never had anybody do that. Like everybody pretty much like takes ownership if they're not doing the like.
I'm also that client, but I'm too ashamed to ask for my money back.
Yeah. Oh, I've actually asked for my money back from a course before, but I'm not talking about that. But yeah, most of my clients, like the clients that are the best they're all wonderful and like they all bring something and teach me something. That's the thing too, is like and how I'm evolving. It's like, I am learning about everyone's individual journeys and that what works for me might not work for another person. So it's about really personally figuring out what works for that individual. And it feels almost like a puzzle. Like, you get to kind of get to the root of what is driving them to have alcohol. And they might not even really realize it. They might think it's socializing, but maybe it's, something deeper than that. And I think that's kind of probably the difference between what you're going to be doing and what I'm doing, is that coaching is really more future focused and like goal oriented. So we're kind of like creating what they'll want their life to look like, and then figuring out like what we need, what tools we need to get them there. And also like unlocking those blockages and those beliefs and deconstructing them through experience and through like tools and knowledge. So with coaching, with Annie Grace's program in particular, we start with the knowledge first rather than quitting drinking cold turkey. So it's not abstinence based. There is a point where we want to take a break from drinking to get that experience, to take away that, barrier, but it's not cold turkey. It's not all or nothing. It's at the individual's pace. And that's kind of, the traditional way of doing things, like what you're saying about treatment. It's like someone not drinking, the behavior change is seen as the success and like the end point. But that actually, in the long run, like I had a client, for example, that was in AA for 10 years. She didn't drink for 10 years, but she never worked on her mindset or her beliefs. So when she got out of it and her kids were older, like she told herself, once my kids grow up, I'm going to drink again. And she went back to drinking the way that she did before. So it wasn't
she like kept her promise to herself.
Yeah. But it wasn't until she got into this program that she was like, oh, like I actually don't want to drink. And like having those like breakthroughs of like, I drink because of this, and like kind of like doing that inner work that is what makes this stick and gives you that real freedom from alcohol, is like deconstructing all the reasons you think you need it.
Yeah, which is like a little bit about what we were talking about before. Yeah, and I mean, I like that. I mean, the education part of it is so big, and it also makes it more approachable because you don't actually have to do anything or change anything right out the gate. You can kind of like tiptoe and back your way into it.
Yeah. So I have them all. I send them all a copy of Annie Grace's book. And, in the training, we got like a huge library of all these tools. So I kind of will hand select like tools for an individual. Like some people come in and they're dealing with, bad relationship situations, traumatic relationship situations. Had a few people like transitioning through divorce. A lot of moms, like older moms that were like empty nesters, that kids went off to school and they didn't have like the same parameters and routines in place. And then, they started drinking more during the pandemic. I did see like quite a lot of people that noticed that their drinking habits changed. And then I have people that are just like, I don't feel great. I'm not drinking a lot. Like they'll even have pushback from their partners maybe, or like someone in their friend group, because they're like, you don't have a problem. The whole, like, you don't have a problem, so keep drinking. So it is a really like mixed bag of who comes to me. But yeah, it's at the root of it, they're all coming for the same thing. It's not necessarily because alcohol is ruining their lives, but because they feel like it's keeping them stuck and like holding them back from what they want to achieve, and they feel like it could be better. So
thank you for coming back. I'm excited to continue the convo. Please come back. Squad, you know where to find her. We'll continue this convo. Until we meet again, be nice to yourself and don't forget,
hangover suck.
Hangover suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.